everybody, my name is Molly. I play the viola and I'm on a journey to becoming a better musician and happier person. I haven't made a video in a while, which is fine. Like, this isn't really my main thing, but I was really inspired to just kind of share my thoughts about what's going on with Simone Biles and the Olympic gymnastics team event. You probably already know this, but Simone Biles, who's considered the greatest gymnast in the history of the sport, decided to take a mental health break during the Tokyo Olympics, like yesterday. And despite getting all the way to the Olympics and having all the pressure in the world to be the best, she decided to take a step back, and a substitute filled in for her on the team event. What was really striking to me is that she wasn't showing a lot of remorse or anger or sadness about it in the press conference. She was matter of fact about it. I think that's just partially her personality, not to overly show emotion, but I was really impressed that she wasn't making a ton of excuses. She didn't really seem scared or apprehensive to say what was really going on. And a lot of thoughts started going through my head right away, and that's kind of what I want to get into today. I'm not into gymnastics all the time, but when the Olympics come around, it's my favorite sport to watch, especially since the USA team has a lot of great athletes this year. I've been watching the YouTube clips since the first days of the Olympic trials a few weeks ago. I know that in Rio, Simone dominated almost every event. And I had noticed that she was kind of off. And now I'm saying this from someone who can't even do a cartwheel. But from what commentators were saying and from what I knew she was capable of, like, things were off here and there. Her dismount wasn't perfect, or she didn't look confident. She would step out of bounds at the end of things, stuff like that. And I don't know the rules of gymnastics, and I'm not even going to pretend that I could do 0.1% of what the women on the USA gymnastics team can do. But I noticed, like, she's off. And I had the thought during the trials, like, oh, well, this is her getting out the mistakes, and by the time the Olympics come around, she'll be ready to go. Then the Olympics started, and she was still, like, faltering a little bit. It totally makes sense that something's going on with her mental health, and I don't want to overanalyze that because it's not my business, but just having every step along the way be televised in this sequence, looking back, it all makes sense. Like I said, I'm not an athlete, I'm not world-class anything, and when I say that I relate to Simone, I'm not saying because I have everyone in the entire world watching me perform and expecting me to be the best. But I do see some of my own struggles reflected in what she's been going through on the global stage. She and I are the same age. She just turned 24 and I'm almost 24. And 5 years ago, when she was in the Olympics, I remember she had a lot of just charisma and confidence and energy. She knew she was the best, probably, but she wasn't, like, thinking, what would the best gymnast in the world do? How do I have to act? What if I'm not the best anymore? Like, she was just going for it and enjoying it. And 5 years later, the weight of being the best has added a lot of emotional complexity to the sport for her specifically, and I definitely relate to that. When I was an undergraduate student, I had a lot of confidence and I was competitive, but I wasn't really overthinking stuff. I knew there were students at school better than me, but, like, I was just like, well, I can do this. I can do this competition. I can do that. I can show up to my lesson not having warmed up and still play fine and act like I did warm up. Like, I didn't have a lot of extra baggage or concerns attached to playing, because not that many things had happened to me yet, I guess. I'd had a majority positive experiences on my instrument. A lot changed when I won the concerto competition at school. It was just one competition I had entered before and not won, but winning made me see myself in a different way. Compared to other people, I could do well enough to win. And I got this great opportunity to play a concerto with my school's orchestra. And I'm so grateful for that, but I feel like my life experiences are kind of filed under before that happened and after that happened. I just naively expected things would be different and I would have an easier time getting into festivals, things like that, and it didn't really happen. Like, I still had the same success rate pretty much of applying to things as I did before I won the competition. I didn't become a different violist. Every time I didn't get into something or an audition did not go well, I thought, am I regressing? Did I really deserve to win that competition? Was that a fluke, or was that a sign of who I really am? Or shouldn't I be better than this? Shouldn't I be able to get into these festivals now that I've played with my school's orchestra? After 2 years of rejections to summer festivals, I think the overthinking of all of that caused, to a certain degree, the lack of success that occurred. In addition to the fact that no one can suddenly just start winning everything, and there's always going to be rejection, I had a lot of emotion tied to whether I would be accepted or rejected to things now, because I thought there was something different about me compared to other violists and compared to other musicians. And that took my focus away from being confident and from enjoying what I was doing and just being myself. That led to me playing worse and being able to rely on myself less as a musician and a performer as time went on. It's naive to say, oh, well, this didn't go right, but that just means the next time it'll definitely go right. And, that's what I was hopefully thinking when Simone was faltering a little bit at the Olympic trials. Well, she's the best in the world, so she'll just get through the trials and then the real Simone will come out for the real event. And I mean, the individual events haven't happened yet as I'm making this, so who knows what will happen. But as she kept doing all the events leading up to the finals at the Olympics, I realized, yeah, she's overthinking it. Her focus is taken away from loving the sport and being confident and focusing on what really matters. I know that feeling of screwing up, but thinking, okay, well, the next time has to be better, and then it's not, and thinking, well, the next time has to be better, and then it's not. And to see that vulnerable part of myself reflected in a world-class Olympic athlete is powerful. I had conflicting feelings that I want to get into when I first saw what she decided to do. Hands down, it is a big deal that continuing to fall short of your expectations due to pressure others are putting on you and pressure you're putting on yourself, and not just having it be a fluke and then go right back to being perfect. I relate to that, and I'm grateful that there's people at every stage and every level of achievement who go through that as well. My first reaction when she pulled out of the team event was, well, she's the best in the world. What's the point of being the best in the world if you don't have the medals to prove it? And that's not a generous thought to have to her or to anyone else. But I really want to think about, what does it mean to be the best in the world if you don't prove it through winning the gold medals? No one in the world is questioning if she's the best. I mean, hopefully. I haven't really read a bunch of negative stuff about her. I'm sure it's out there, but 100% of the people saying negative things about her cannot do what she does. So there's that. But I really want to separate things you can put on a resume that prove to the world your accomplishments from things you can do in your everyday life that prove your worth to yourself and to the people who actually know you. I've spent this summer being a private violin viola teacher, I teach group classes, and last week I taught a chamber camp. That's also something that can go on my resume, no doubt about that. I can say that to people and they'd be like, oh, that's cool, and I'm so grateful for the experience. But I did have to adjust my mindset, because on a given day at Music Academy of the West, for example, I would have an orchestra rehearsal with a famous conductor. Then I would have lunch with students from all over the world who go to the best music schools in the country. And then my piano quartet would go and have a coaching with a famous violinist and international soloist violinist. And then later that evening, I would go to a concert given by a famous string quartet who, like, won a Grammy. Okay, that's really easy to brag about. And that's not, bragging isn't the most important thing, obviously, but that's really easy to brag about. And you can say, I went to the Music Academy of the West, to someone in the know, and immediately they'll know, oh, you did all those cool things and with prestigious people. What I'm doing this summer is so valuable to my development as a musician and as a teacher. I've never had private students really in the capacity that I have now. I have not interacted with people under the age of 18 in a really long time. My day-to-day in this job is like telling people to keep their right pinky curved on the bow rather than straight, or reminding them 10 times in a half-hour lesson to keep their instrument up parallel to the floor. And that's just not as prestigious. But it doesn't mean I regressed. It doesn't mean I'm not worthy of prestige. And if anything, it's really affirming that I can take my bachelor's and 2/3 of a master's degree into the real world and interact with younger musicians and impart my expertise, rather than constantly hoping that the people I'm around think I'm good enough. I have not really had to face feeling insecure this summer, and I haven't felt that way in a long time. So that is so valuable. And I was thinking, like, Simone Biles, she put so much pressure on herself, and the entire world puts so much pressure on her. But I just want to think about some of the positive things that she's done to contribute to her community and the sport of gymnastics that could never win her a gold medal, like the new moves that she has invented, or the fact that her dropping out gave other women on the team, like Jordan Chiles, the opportunity to go out and do what Simone did 5 years ago. The fact that she invited Jordan Chiles to train with her in Texas, and probably had so many affirming moments for herself, being a mentor to a younger gymnast. Jordan Chiles really isn't gonna get to Simone's level in all likelihood. It's not like Simone Biles had to just stoop to Jordan's level and distract herself from the real prize, which is a gold medal. Like, she probably became not only such a better athlete, but a better person for being a mentor to a younger athlete like that. I mean, there's so many things, like, the prestige doesn't make you who you are. The gold medal at the Olympics isn't even the most important thing to the best gymnast in the world. And just seeing Simone Biles do something for herself and not feel ashamed of it, it helps me to know that the great work that I'm doing this summer that positively affects not only myself, but young musicians in the area that I'm teaching in, it's a great reminder to me to stay focused on what makes me a better person and what actually improves my musicianship. I just feel so much more connected to a community this summer than I have ever felt at a festival. I want to have goals for myself that aren't just wrapped up in how much better I am than other people. I want to actually be able to achieve them and celebrate achieving them, and not have it be because someone else didn't do well as me. Because Simone Biles is the perfect example that being the best in the world isn't about proving it. It's just being a person and working on yourself and having a positive impact on other people. And in her free time, she happens to be able to do gymnastics better than anyone else. But it doesn't all come down to the Tokyo Olympics for her to know that, or for her to be valued, or for people to be positively impacted by her. Thank you guys so much for watching. I made a video that's related to this topic called Letting Go of External Validation. You can find that in the description below. Hopefully you want to check out some of my other videos. I haven't made a video in a while, but I do make content not only of me performing, but of trying to just figure out what kind of musician and happier person I want to be. So if that interests you, please check those out and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.